welcome to 24 hours of UX. And yeah, I can't say that this year I've done all 24 hours, but last year I can claim the fame to doing all 24. I'm not going to do that again. This is the 24th hour of 21st hour of the 24, and we've had a great day so far. We've had so many great talks and so many great keynotes. And we're so pleased to introduce Zach Perkins. He's the Strategic Development Manager of Adobe XD. And yeah, he's a design and coffee nerd based out of Portland, Oregon. He's been designing for just over 20 years, with the last half of his career focused on user experience design. Prior to moving to Portland, he was in San Fran native. He's a San Fran native working in design teams from enterprise to startups, which includes Salesforce, TaskRabbit. He's recently joined Adobe as the strategic manager and focusing on UX, Adobe XD, and loves showing off how great of a program it is. So just wanted to give you all, if this is your first one, just a quick overview of the interface here in AirMeet. Down at the bottom, we have our reactions, and feel free to send your loves and your claps and everything else during the event. And you are welcome to turn on the CC, the closed captions, and you can see any of the words that are being said. And also, if you're finding that your connection is going a little bit slow, feel free to head over to where it says HD in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can change it from HD high definition to low definition and give that a go if that might help you out. All these sessions are being recorded, and they will be available online at a later date for everyone to watch. So if you did miss anything, or you had to jump out because you just had enough and needed to get that drink, don't worry, you're not going to miss anything. Afterwards, and actually throughout this talk, Zach has said that if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the Q&A section. That is in the right side of the window. We have the chat section, but if you click on the Q&As, you can ask your questions there. And he said if there's any questions throughout the discussion, feel free to ask, and he will do his best to answer it. So yeah, we just want to thank our sponsors and for all the wonderful contributions that they have given to make this possible. Thank you to you for coming to this, and yeah, I hope you can make it through the rest. You've only got a few more, so you can do it. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to turn off my camera and hand it over to Zach.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrew. Appreciate it. Thank you all for joining today. This is definitely my first 24 hours of UX, so I'm a total newbie. I am just so thankful to be speaking with so many talented creatives on just a variety of topics. I really kind of miss this part of the kind of being in person as we have these conversations and we can go out to the hallway and kind of continue them. So today, my plan is to really kind of share with you an experience, but also an area that is really kind of near and dear to my heart as it relates to the tooling. But I really look forward to kind of sharing how I got there in the kind of the reasonings of where I got to where I am as it relates to my tool set. So today, I will be talking to you about why Adobe XD should be part of your tool set. I'm Zach Perkins. I'm a strategic development manager at Adobe for Adobe XD. But really that title, what that translates to is I'm a design liaison working within the XD team. I personally believe that is probably one of the greatest jobs I've had in my career, because what I get to do every single day is I get to engage with all of Adobe's customers that are UX creatives or design creatives, just like myself and all of you. And I get to show them how XD can improve their workflow, improve their process, and ultimately deliver a better experience. So I get to look under the hood, play around with all of their design files. And as a creative, we all know that we love to kind of jump into people's design files. So it's definitely something that I enjoy, but I really enjoy kind of involving myself with all these other creative teams around the world and really just kind of looking to accomplish that one common goal. And it's just to have beautiful design with a well-intended user experience. I have my social channels listed at the bottom. I would love to connect with all of you. So if you are on either one of these, please reach out, say hi. I would definitely love to keep the conversation going. But as I said, today we are going to talk about like why XD should be in your toolbox. Why is it so great? Why do I like it so much? And why am I even talking about it today? But before we do that, I'm going to pack that away because it's story time. Let's start this so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from as part of this presentation. So one of the famous quotes from Abraham Maslow is, if you have a hammer, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And really what that comes from is like, do you have the right tool for the job? I had this experience where I was at the time utilizing a variety of tools. And I was also an independent freelancer, just moved to Portland, Oregon from San Francisco. I was taking a long overdue break and really just kind of doing a lot of freelance work. So I was really dependent on my tool set. It was a Tuesday. It was a very vivid Tuesday because I had a deadline that was due on Friday for a client that I had just acquired. The unfortunate thing is some of my design tools did not work. Some versions did not match up. And next thing you know, I am unable to work on any of my projects or pieces for that project. And I was left stranded trying to figure out how am I going to get this off the ground and delivered to the client in time. Now, long story short, I was able to find XD. That's how I came across it. I had certain files that I needed to open. XD was able to open those. So as I kind of came in from one tool to the next, it was a kind of an emergency situation, but I can honestly say that from that day moving forward, I honestly never went back to my old tools. I remained in XD, and in fact, probably about 4 months later, I applied for a job to work within the XD team because I really liked the direction that the tool was headed. And in just being involved with the team, we have so much to bring, and there's been so much richness coming to the tool that I'm really excited to share with you what we have today. But before we do that, I'll set the stage. What was I looking for when I came to look for that new tool? So there's 3 primary pillars that I was looking to find a tool or a solution for at the time. I needed something where I could easily do all of my discovery and my wireframes and my design, from my design thinking and brainstorming, my low fidelity designs, and then my high fidelity designs. But as creatives, we all love to prototype and test our experiences, or at least, we really should be testing those in order to make sure that the experiences we're building are going to be suitable for the individuals or the product that we are working on. But more importantly, as creatives, we need to collaborate, we need to share, we need to collect that feedback. We need to bring other people into our design circle or our creative process and get them involved, because they are active contributors, whether it's from feedback or like a content editor that's giving us information to really kind of fuel our designs. So what I came up with is really I needed to find a tool that I could create these amazing projects on. But when I hand them off to a customer or a client or somebody that's going to be reviewing them, they should be well-intended and be able to understand not only my intent, but also experience what I had designed. So truly, I believe that design is really about communicating that idea or curating that experience, even when you aren't present. So that's really kind of how I landed where I am today, utilizing XD as my primary tool. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of presentation slides and jump right into XD and give you kind of a little walk around of how I got here and the ways that I utilize XD in my creative process, as well as others. To start things off, you'll notice that I've been presenting right here, and it's all been directly through XD. So XD, and first and foremost, I really love it as a presentation tool because at any point I can just present my designs, present my prototypes, and really just kind of take off. But if I zoom out a little bit more, you can notice that I've got a whole project going on here, or a whole variety of things that I'm going to walk you through. But as creatives, you know, the thing that I love the most is I loved how open it was. I loved how lightweight it felt. You know, I felt it was perfect for ideation. Like I just walked into a conference room and somebody just cleaned that whiteboard. Like I felt that, and I was ready to get it messy. So one of the things that I loved, it was a blank canvas. So I was able to just jump right in, you know, especially as we're kind of looking to start to do any sort of design thinking exercises or things like that. But, you know, does a blank canvas scare you? You know, that's okay. You know, the hook that really got me pulled in, and as I mentioned, was I did have a blank canvas, but I also had files that I had worked with in the past. I had sketch files, Photoshop files, Illustrator files. I had them all. The beautiful part about it is I could just open those files directly up into XD without any sort of issues. I literally did not have to start any new projects over. I could just resume where I had left off, which really kind of helped speed up my design process and which allowed me to deliver on that deadline that I thought for sure that I was going to be missing. So through that, I was able to kind of start to establish a full kind of design workflow directly in XD. Now you can see here that we've used XD for creating empathy maps. You know, as creatives, we want to create those empathy maps to really kind of understand the intent and make sure that we're designing this for the right person. So I'm utilizing XD to kind of put together a lot of my empathy maps, what users say, what they think, how they feel. And the great part about this is, like I said, I can present this at any time, and then I can share this out with people as well. So you can see how I'm going to share that stuff out as we get through this presentation a little bit longer. But you can see I can truly map out all of my kind of empathy maps, my user personas. I can start to define those as well. So I have a set of user personas that I'm working through. It's quite great. You know, I can really just kind of lay everything out and see everything in one place. My IA diagrams, and then I can also ideate and start to create mood boards. But really kind of beyond that, if you have stuff that you're working on and everything's great and you can just bring it right in, that's perfect. So, but what if you don't have things and you want to kind of get that idea going and get that started? Within Adobe, within the Adobe design team, we also have created a variety of plugins, which I'll be sharing some of my favorite plugins with you today. But as we all have been working from home for the last year plus, we needed a place to collaborate. So within the XD design team, they went and they built a Whiteboard plugin just a little over a year ago. Now, the great thing about the Whiteboard plugin is it has all these pre-baked templates for you. So all your brainstorming activities, all of your kind of persona creations, card sorting, everything that you want is directly right there. Now, the great part is we actually tapped the community to understand what people are using in terms of resources for their design thinking exercises. So we worked with like IBM and Google to understand their methods for design thinking, and we've incorporated a lot of those templates within here. But even beyond that, we know that creatives might be utilizing this plugin as well. So we've brought in abilities to kind of draw or wireframe out your assets, and we have templates for all of that stuff. But you can also think about flow charts as well as product and user experience development and planning directly right here. Now, the thing that I really love about this plugin, and one of the things that I use quite frequently with a lot of my projects, is the plugin has pre-baked workshops directly in. So all that kind of design thinking and empathy building and user personas and things of that sort that you saw me lay out directly on my canvas, you can cruise through here and pick different exercises, and then we'll go ahead, and once you say get started, XD automatically draws all those assets, writes them onto the artboard, onto the canvas area and multiple artboards, and then allows you to start collaborating directly in there. But if you're not familiar with XD, I'm sure you're wondering, like, okay, great, that's cool. So you're going to whiteboard by yourself. Well, what's next? Like, how does that work? Within XD, we also have the ability for live co-editing. So during these collaborative sessions, I was able to kind of invite my colleagues in to participate in the creation process with me. So not only could they come in and edit, I could see what they're doing, what they're working on. We could have conversations in there, but we can truly have that whiteboard experience that we've been missing out on for well over a year. Hopefully we get back there soon.
We have a question for the again, they said that we found that only 2 people can collaborate in the free version. Is that true, or is there a workaround, or did they get it wrong?
Yeah, in terms of it as it relates to the free version of XD, I know that there's been some changes that are coming out. I don't know the exact what the plan looked like in terms of number of users. So I know there are some limitations there with the storage space, the number of projects that you can have for that free version. And really kind of the intention there is to kind of get people up to speed, understand XD, what the features and functionality are there as a full version. But unfortunately, I don't know how many users are allowed in the free version as a co-editing experience.
Mm. And so they, but if they have the paid version, they're able to invite as many people.
Yeah.
They don't have to be paid.
Yes. Yeah, if you have a Creative Cloud license or an XD license, you can actually invite as many people as you would like. I have brainstorming sessions with my entire team from all over the world, jumping in one single file at a time. This is how we do all of our roadmap planning, is all directly right in here. And you can just add them. The moment they get added, they can pop right in. As they kind of populate in, all their avatars populate at the top with a unique color ring around them. So we have the ability to kind of see all their live cursors as they're moving around. But as you kind of grow and have this amazing kind of design thinking board, you'll have this huge canvas, but you might not be able to see everybody at the same time. So you can double click on their avatars, and an XD will take you directly to the artboard that they're working on as a way of wayfinding throughout XD. So some amazing ways to collaborate directly right here from an ideation standpoint. The other thing when you're collaborating with people, especially during the design thinking, one of the features that we rolled out about a year ago is we have history and versioning directly in XD as well. So as you ideate and do your design thinking exercises, you may want to mark a version to be saved. So in this case, I can go ahead and mark a version, and I could label this, 24 hours of UX, and save that as a version. Now, versions within XD get saved for the life of the XD file. All the historical timestamps will begin to deprecate after 60 days, but versions will stay for the life of the XD file. So you can go ahead and mark those milestones throughout your creative journey and reference those at any point. You can click on that little ellipsis and open each version in a new window so you can operate those side by side and really kind of see the differences between the two files. So between collaboration from live co-editing to history and versioning, you really can kind of keep a nice kind of nice little catalog going of what you've done to date and reference any sort of historical information as well. So some really great things to do there. One last thing that I will mention in terms of a plugin that the team continues to roll out. Well, actually 2 more plugins from the Adobe design team is a quick mock. It's called Quick Mockup. It allows you to kind of mock things up incredibly quick and theme them just so you can kind of get a general idea of user experience. So we have a bunch of elements and templates and themes associated to that. And then the other plugin that I really like from the Adobe design team is the presentation plugin. So you can build all your presentations directly in XD, have themes and saved, and have those applied to your slides as well. So some great things coming from the Adobe design team that plug directly right into your experience and are part of your workflow on a daily basis. I'll definitely be hitting a few more plugins along the way as we get through that, but those are kind of the initial ones that I really like from an ideation and presentation standpoint of XD. Now, as we kind of zoom out a little bit and I kind of start to jump around into the more design side of things, I'm going to transition over into one of my more high fidelity experiences to share some of the design features and functionality that really kind of make our workflows as creatives a lot faster. Allowing us to spend more time building out those memorable experiences, or just ensuring that the way we have the user interacting with the designs that we are creating, that we have made the right decisions. So there's a lot of features within XD that really kind of help you fast track the simple tasks that may be time consuming to allow you to kind of allocate more time to the necessary tasks at hand. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump directly right into this high fidelity prototype or design right here. So I've been working on a kind of a learning application where if you want to learn a new skill or something along those lines, you can basically sign up for it. You can review people's profiles. It's a totally dummy project, but it highlights a lot of the functionality incredibly well. So for starters, we have all of these cards scaled across. I've built a default card because I'm going to replicate that same card across multiple pages within my experience. And I will be discussing the component side of things. But first, right now, I'm just going to select this card. Now, historically, what we've done is we've just kind of copied and pasted and dragged this and kind of hoped for the best, play around with our alignment tools, and then just kind of checked out and moved on to the next thing. Aligning things can be super, super tedious. I have major OCD. I can tell you that I've pushed pixels more than I should have. So in this case with XD, I can select any object. It can be a component, it can be a group, it can be a single element on your screen. And right here within the properties inspector, we have repeat grid. Now, I'm going to go ahead and select that repeat grid option, and we get these handles on the right side and on the bottom. What this does is it allows me to just roll that card out as much as I need. I can hover right in between each of these cards and tighten up that padding that I'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and just zero that out like so. Now, with the repeat grid, you saw me drag it horizontally, but if I needed to, I could also draw that vertically. So anytime we kind of need this stuff, we can go ahead and access it. And with the padding already being applied, that alignment stuff has already been done for me. So I'm actually going to stretch this card out just a little bit longer so I can get a few more, because I'll want to scroll those at the same time here in the near future. But with repeat grid, we can do a lot of really cool things beyond just copying and pasting the same element over and over again. But with repeat grid selected, we have ways within XD to inject certain things into elements within a repeat grid. You can utilize certain plugins, like there's a plugin, Google Sheets plugin, that allows you to connect to Google Sheets data, like spreadsheets, but you can also upload CSV files from that plugin. There's also a plugin called Data Populator that allows you to connect to JSON databases and surface up content from those. But there's also a really kind of quick way to introduce content or imagery to something that has a repeat grid set up. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over to my Finder window, go to my desktop where I have some of my demo materials, and go right into my repeat grid assets. Now, I have a bunch of images right here, but I want to utilize images throughout all of these cards. I'm going to go ahead and just select all these images, even though it's more than the cards that I've created, and I'm just going to drag and drop them right on that first card. Now, the moment I drag and drop them, you see that every single image was populated in each of those cards, because XD knows where the first card is, and it knows that it's an infinite line. So we can easily kind of just drag and drop those cards right on the first one, And then the order that they are in my Finder window, they'll just start populating throughout. Now, once it reaches the end of those 6 images or so that I have, it'll just begin to repeat them. Same thing could be said with text files. You can drag and drop text files directly onto text elements and things of that. So within Repeat Grid, there's a lot of opportunities there to plug in data, imagery, things of that sort. Now, you don't have to drag it from your desktop if you're working in Creative Cloud libraries, which I'll dabble in here in a little bit. You can also drag assets from that. So some great things that you can do with Repeat Grid. I use it quite often on navigation elements, tabbed elements, things of that sort. But for cards like this, it is perfect. The kind of cruising on actually, before I move on, there is one thing that I did want to update, and let me just go ahead and back out really quick to show you. I mentioned libraries, but I'm going to go a little bit further. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these little avatar circles like so. Let's see. Let me just get some exposure to these so I can see them. There we go. And we have the UI Faces plugin, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's been around for a long time. But the great part about it is I can go ahead with those elements selected, choose whatever filters I want. Right here, I'm just going to go ahead and select some folks. It shows that I have 4 elements selected. They're already in that grid. I can come through here. I can go ahead and select a bunch of different images, apply those, and those are just going to drop directly into my asset into XD. So some really cool things to help speed up that process, but more or less to kind of bring life to that experience as well. So with all these cards, I'm going to go ahead and select those like so. We also have another feature right here that I can utilize to scroll my content. So within XD, we have scrollable groups. So I have these cards. They definitely go off the canvas. It's okay. But with any sort of object selected, what I can come over to the properties inspector, and right here in the transform area, there's 3 options for scrollable groups. So I can create horizontal scrolls, vertical scrolls, and pan. So think about if you're in like that Google Maps experience and you want to pan around a map. Well, guess what? You can just do that with scrollable groups. The cool thing about it is this can be utilized on anything. This could be vector assets, raster assets, groupings of assets, text, whatever. You can utilize scrollable groups directly right here. Now, since it's a horizontal, I'm just going to go ahead and select that horizontal. And just like Repeat Grid, you see it puts these little handles on here. So you can stretch those handles out that will define your scrollable area. XD by default will snap it to the edge of the artboard that you have content running over. And one of the great things about XD2 is I can go ahead and select that artboard. And at any time that I want to test something out, we have this play icon directly right here. So I could have a desktop preview just to make sure that that scroll does work. But if I'm doing something mobile too, we also have companion devices where you can hook up to your device and get a device preview as well. But in this case, since it's just a desktop web experience, I'm going to go ahead and click play, bring it into view so you can see that. But I can scroll this content like so, right? And then here's that scroll group. I can scroll that back and forth. There's all my images that I brought in. So I didn't even have to do anything, tell XD to scroll it. I just defined the scroll group and it automatically worked. So some really kind of great things to utilize in creating your experiences with scroll groups. But while we're here within this area, like so, I really like to share the idea, and it looks like I got a little extra card hanging out over here, so I'm just going to delete that for the sake of this. But one of the other kind of areas in XD that I really love is we have this recent feature, recent of probably about 8 months ago or so, but it's called Stacks. It's for layout management and really kind of preserving your layout and allowing you to kind of move around. So one of the great things that I'm going to do here is I have this one single page that's a layout. I'm going to just go ahead and select and group my like objects. So I have these scrollable areas with my headers. I'm just going to create a couple of independent groupings of those objects. But I can also maybe within here, I I can actually, I'll group in some of these objects if I wanted to. And what I'm trying to show here is just kind of groups nested within groups. But ultimately, if I take a look at, and I'll start small, so I have those 4 items grouped right now. Within this layout section within the properties inspector, we have this stacks feature. I'm going to go ahead and enable that. XD automatically detects that it is a horizontal stack with 26 pixels of padding in between each of those elements. With that stacked enabled now, what I can do is I can double click into that and I can just start moving things around. All that padding is going to be preserved. You can see those little pink lines pop up to show me where it's going to drop that element as I kind of scroll it or drag it around. But it really allows me to kind of keep that layout preserved while I'm doing my work. But let's take that out and let's magnify it, like think about it doing a whole page layout. Or geez, even in fact, let's go back into the scroll group that we created, apply a stack there as well. Looks like I need to button up that padding from 31 to 30. I'll do that really quick while I'm in there. So now that I've got all of these items selected like so, I'll group those and then turn on stack again. XD has detected that it's a vertical stack in this case. Now, if I wanted to, I can move those other topics right up here. Test that experience out. You know, how does this work in compared to some of the other things that I'm doing? With that stacks layout, you know, what I really like about it is, you know, think about that this website homepage, right? How many times have we gone, okay, here's version 2, okay? Because we need to create multiple versions, right? So in this case, I have that one version where other topics are up top. This one, I'm going to bring this one down, but my top rated, I'm going to bring those up because, you know, top rated needs some love too, right? So I'm going to lock that right in. Now within XD, now I have 2 separate layouts ready to go. Now the cool thing is about these is I can easily share each one of these individual layouts with somebody. So we have this quick share option directly here that I click that, goes right into the share mode, and I can say who I want to share that with. But also too, if I wanted to, within XD, we have the ability to create multiple prototype flows. So I may want to start from multiple home pages, but go back into the main flow for purely A, B, and maybe even sometimes C testing. So with multiple flows in XD, you can go ahead and create those flows, A and B tests directly in XD, capture all that feedback through our sharing and collaboration side, which I'll get to here shortly, and get your answers a lot sooner. So there's lots of great things that you can do with that stacks and creating those variable layouts to help you not only test, but kind of ideate a little bit more. Although I do miss the days back in Photoshop when we did UI design and we would save like version 17 and the file was like, you know, a couple of gigs at that point. So I'm sure you all can relate.
So is this kind of like an auto layout sort of a feature that you say?
So is it kind of like a what feature?
An auto layout.
It is just like an auto layout. Now, you know, with that auto layout set up, you know, we do have other options directly within XD as well to kind of help with those layouts, but also preserve layouts. We're doing a lot more work in this area, so that stacks is kind of one of the first few things that we introduced. But some of the other things that we have readily available too to help speed up those kind of scale up and scale down options is responsive resize. So within responsive resize, if I kind of select this profile, now what happens if we need to make, say, a tablet view or a mobile view and need to kind of break that stuff down, right? So by default in the layout area, responsive resize is turned on. Now responsive resize is applicable to artboards and individual elements, groups, components. It doesn't matter, it's enabled. You can always turn it off and go into an auto setup. But I just kind of want to show you with this single profile right here selected and responsive resize turned on, I can go ahead and scale my design and you can see that things actually stay fixed and scroll and move as they should. You can see all the red, pink lines showing up, preserving all that spacing from that layout. But I can easily kind of scale up and down my designs relatively fast utilizing responsive resize. Now, the idea of responsive resize is not to do all the work for you because that's no fun. we need to really kind of invest some time and curate the experience for the screen or device that we're designing for. So the idea is that we'll get you really close so you can go ahead and tailor the experience for the screen or device that you're designing for. But it really kind of helps speed up that process. Now, one thing that I will show you that I really, really love about the stacks. I was going to say responsive resize, but the stacks layout, and I'm just going to quickly copy this grouping and come off canvas, this artboard to kind of show you this process. I'm going to ungroup that grid so I have 4 and enable that stack so they're all sitting there horizontal. But with that responsive resize, you can scale things down, but you may have things like this that since they're in a stack, we will need to fold them. With the stacks enabled on these elements, I can toggle them between horizontal and vertical, so everything will shift around and allow me to kind of easily curate the content for that mobile experience. So if you have things that in rows, like I showed you kind of nesting stacks within stacks, if you have some of those grouped objects that are in a horizontal stack, you can easily kind of wrap those directly down. Is this file shareable? You know what? A version of this file is definitely available, and I'm gonna, one of my last slides in the presentation here, so you guys all hang out with me for the entirety of this. I'll show you where you can get all this wonderful assets. And they're all in the form of XD files with some documentation and tutorials associated to them too. So kind of moving on. The one thing that I have not hit on that I was kind of saving the best for last on the design side of things is components. We all work with components. Some of us may work with symbols. Symbols and components, it's all the same thing. But I really love XD's components, and let me show you why. So let me just start off with the overall kind of just architecture of the components so you can kind of understand the differences between them. So within XD, once you create a component, we get this kind of green border around it with a nice green diamond in the upper left-hand corner. The solid green diamond tells me that this is a main component. Think of this as the parent component. Copies of that component have a hollowed out diamond in the upper left-hand corner. This tells me it's an instance of a component. Now, if I were to take this component and I'll just slide over to the side, make another one, and let's just say I change this from XD pink to a really vibrant green, and I select that instance of that component, I can see that I have a dot within that hollowed out diamond. And what that tells me is an override has been applied in the form of a background color change. Now, nothing, it's still tied to that main component, but I needed to make a slight color change for a specific area within the design that I was working on. But don't fret, at any point, you can go ahead and right click and reset it back to the main state. So any overrides that you do, you can always get back to where you are. So it's kind of, it's a great thing to have readily available in your back pocket. But what I wanted to show you just kind of firsthand is what it's like when you go ahead and create that component in XD and what's involved with it. So in this case, I just chose a simple button to kind of walk you through. I have a label and a background, and I'm just going to go ahead and group those objects together. Now, one of the things that is part of our stacks feature is also applying padding or padding to groups of objects. So with this selected and grouped with that label and background, I'm going to come back over to the layouts area within my properties inspector, select padding. Now you can see that XD has dropped some values in here where the padding lies from my top, right, bottom, and left areas. And I can leave that as is, or I can go ahead and change this. The whole idea of this is I can go ahead and change it, and with that padding, it'll stay preserved, especially when this label changes. So in this case, I might change this to, I'll leave that as 17, and I'll switch these to, say, 30, and I'll switch that other one over there to 30. For the sake of this, I'll bump these to 16, so we have some nice even numbers. Now, it's not a component yet, but just to show you, if I click in here and change this to, say, 24 hours of UX, you can see that that padding still remains preserved. Now, this padding works beyond just kind of text labels and that background color. Think about if you have the padding set up in one of these cards, like so. I'll just go ahead and start to group some of these objects. Let me just double click into this and start selecting some of this stuff. I'll just group this, all of this stuff like so. Grouped. And then these final things are grouped. And what I can do now is with this background, I can just go ahead and select all of this stuff and group it and apply that padding like so. So you can see that it puts that 13 pixels of padding right there at the very top because that's where I have it. But the cool thing is if I come in here and add in some additional buttons or so, my stuff will scale. Now I'm not going to break my design, but you can see as the pink lines show up, when I let go, everything's going to go ahead and scale nicely. But padding can be applied for things other than just text. So some great things there as well. Returning back to the components, now that I have this button and I have my padding applied, I'll change this back to I'll just call this label for the sake of this demo. And now I'm ready to create a component. Now, when you create a component in XD, you can either right click and say make component or Command K. Now, the moment you make a component, it becomes the main or parent component. And now I'm going to open up my my assets panel right over here within XD. Now, the assets panel is where you're going to store all of those reusable assets like components. So you can see that component that I just added here as component 21 by default. I can double click in there and just change that. I'll say 24 button. So we have that set. So now I can just drag that button out whenever I need it, and there's an instance of it. Before I move on and start utilizing that button, what I'm going to want to do is we have component states directly in XD. So directly in the component main area, I can click this add state button. So you can add any new state. So this could be your disabled state, air state, whatever state you want. But we have two pre-wired states. So we have the hover state and a toggle state. What those pre-wired states do is if you define a hover state, you don't need to prototype a hover state. The moment you utilize this button in any of your prototypes, that hover state will automatically be active for you. Same with toggle state. If you tap on that or select that button and you have a toggle state defined, it'll go straight to that toggle state, all contained within that one single button. It's already pre-wired. Now think about design systems from a UI controls perspective that has multiple states. Now with those hover and toggle states enabled, I can go ahead and curate all of my micro interactions, whether they're crazy advanced or just a light little hover or color state change or something like that. But all of those are pre-wired and the interaction is pre-wired as well. That gets bundled together in a single component. So anybody dragging that out from a design system, guess what? All of those interactions are already set to go. So you don't need to wire those up. You're purely going to be wiring your transitions. So in this case, I'll add a hover state really quick. And once I select that, I'll go ahead and change this type or the background color to something slightly darker. And then I'll go ahead and add that, that toggle state as well. Double click in there, change that color to something even more darker. And then now what you see is I have one single component, but multiple states. So you basically are managing this all from one single component. I'll drag that 24-hour button out again. There it is. Guess what? All those states right there. So I can easily have those all set up. Now, you can see up here at the top, I have these three tabs. They really map nicely to those three pillars I talked about earlier about designing, prototyping, and testing and sharing. I'm going to toggle over to prototype really quick. So if you take a look at that component that I have selected, remember, I already made it a component. There's those wires hanging off right there. If I select those, there's my interactions. All my tap, hover are all defined right there. I can go ahead and change these to whatever action I want. So there, I'm going to just change it to a simple transition. I'm going to change that hover to a simple transition. And again, at any point, what I can do is I can click play. There's my little buttons area. And there's that hover, there's my tap, it gets darker. So it's all contained within one single component. Now think about UI controls, like I just said, utilizing UI component states. Let me jump down into something more realistic that we're all familiar with. Toggle states. right? We have that toggle state, but now we have that beauty of adding in that true toggle state. So with that, you can see that slides back really nice. It's got a kind of nice little smooth bounce to it. Well, guess what? Within XD, we have auto animate, which animates the differences between two objects. In this case, it's animating the differences between states. If we got any old school Flash people in the room, please raise your hand because this is going to make perfect sense. Remember keyframes, tweening between those keyframes, starting keyframe, ending keyframe. Think about auto animate like that. So your component states, you're animating the differences between those keyframes. You can do the same thing between artboards and animate the differences between artboards as well. So you think about it, I have this drop down right here. We all know that those open, right? So there it is. It's that default state of or open, and then I have my collapse. But with that auto animate set up, I can make that drop down actually drop down instead of just showing up. There's nothing else I have to do. There's no timeline. There's no programming. I can just select that, click it again, and it'll collapse right back up. But here's a little hover state with a menu that I created just within those two single artboards. Now, what about those really kind of beautiful micro interactions that we see when we're going through an experience and we're like, that would be really cool. I wish I thought of that. Well, you know, those hover states with those auto animates to kind of expand those buttons or an expanding folder and have some papers come out. You know, those little peekaboos, you know, you can create those directly in XD utilizing auto animate. You're literally animating the differences between two states. You just got to design the states, tell XD that you want it to auto animate, and off to the races you go. So some really kind of cool things. I will happily say that this little playground file with all of the component states and all of these assets is available through a resource that I'll share here in a little bit. And there's also a UI kit for auto animate. If you really want to kind of nerd out on auto animate, there's a lot of stuff directly there as well. So that is kind of components and component states. As we're kind of getting towards the tail end of our conversation, I think it's the appropriate time to kind of now officially transition into that prototype tab since we already have that selected. So with that said, I'm going to jump back over into the prototype tab. But since we're to a mobile design, but as we kind of get to that high fidelity mobile design, let me just tease you really quick with some more cool kind of auto animate with single interactions. You know, I told you auto animate animates the differences between artboards. So I have this carousel right here. You can see that I have item 1, item 2. In the second artboard, item 1 is off screen, but item 2 is in screen. If I move to that third artboard, item 2 now is zoomed in or enlarged. It's a difference between one artboard to the next. So if I go ahead and I click this top movies artboard, click play, you can see that I have that. And now I can interact with this. I can drag it. I can also click into it and zoom in, and that's all through auto animate. Literally, I just designed the artboards and dragged a couple of wires, told XD to auto animate, and off to the races it went. Same with like this pull to refresh. You know, we want to do some fun kind of memorable things within our experience. So like I remember when Yelp or somebody, maybe it was no, it was Hipmunk, when you pull and click to refresh, pull a refresh, you get the cool little Hipmunk logo animating. So you can do things like that directly in XD, show what those little previews look like. Or even better, like I can click and drag. You can do drag elements directly in XD, and then it goes away and everything kind of scales up because I've got the stacks set up enabled. Since I removed one element, stacks collapsed to preserve that padding. So some really kind of cool things that you can do with auto animate. And again, all of these assets will be available to you. So let's make our way back up to that mobile flow that I was working on to show you how easy it is to prototype this stuff out. So one of the cool things that we have within XD, with the prototype tab enabled, you can select on any artboard or element. And what you're going to do is you're going to get these little chevron arrows that point out, and you click and you drag those. Now, like I said, from any element or artboard, you can do this. I'm going from one artboard to the next. So I'm just going to drag from this splash screen to the home screen, just drag and drop that wire. Once I do that, XD presents us with a set of triggers that we can pick from. There's tap, drag, time, keyboard, and gamepad support, as well as voice. I will say that XD is the only tool out there right now that has the ability to build almost a completely accessible prototype utilizing keyboard commands, utilizing your voice. We have Alexa integrations if you're working on Alexa apps. Lots of great things that you can do there with voice. Keyboard support for a lot of the accessible keyboards for people to navigate, screen readers and things of that, so you can really tailor the experience. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize time because it's a splash screen. I just want somebody to hang out for a little bit and then maybe go to the home screen. My transition type, I'm just going to have it transition, nothing special. And my transition animation is going to be a dissolve. And at that point too, I can set all of my easing properties. I'm just going to leave it as is. And within XD, I'll click that play button, give it a second, and you can see that it just automatically transitioned directly over. So now what I want to do is, now that I've got to that screen, let's start wiring up these other screens. So I want the user to go ahead and click on Learn or tap on Learn and come over to this next screen. So tap trigger, correct. Transition, yep, check. It already defaults to the destination because I dragged and dropped that wire. If you have certain things that you're transitioning to and you want to preserve that scroll position, you can do so too. But the animation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say slide left. I'll change the easing to ease in and out, and I'll just bump this up to 0.4. Go ahead and test that again, see what happens. Click Learn, and guess what? It slides over. So it was just that easy to create those kind of screen transitions. Now, some of the other options that we have directly in XD as well is, we can bring in elements like modal overlays, keyboards, and place them wherever we want. So in this case, I want the user to tap that search and I want to expose that keyboard. So tap into that search area, bring in that keyboard, but instead of a transition, I'm going to choose overlay. Now, the moment you choose overlay as a prototype wire, you can see we got this dashed line experience, but I also get a green box. When I click on it, it gives me like a 50% view into where that keyboard is. I can drag and drop it there. XD knows that that's going to be the resting place. So what I can do is I can change my animation type to slide up just like an iOS keyboard does. XD knows to pull it off canvas, slide it up into place when somebody taps that. And again, for the sake of testing, I'm going to go ahead and tap that search. There's that keyboard. Anytime you tap outside of that keyboard, it's automatically going to retreat just like the iOS keyboard does as well. But taking it a little bit step further to show you some of the kind of the full capabilities of XD, we've got this little microphone icon right here, right? And so creating a voice-enabled prototype is really easy in XD. One thing I do want to point out is XD remembers your previous wire that you drew. So in this case, it still thinks it's an overlay. So I'm going to switch it back over into a transition. And in this case, I'm going to use my voice because I am searching for surfing. All I got to do is put that command in. You can put sentences, keywords, whatever. You don't have to say it all, just as long as you hit a few. And I want my animation to kind of dissolve in, ease in and out. All those properties sound great to me. But what I want to do is I want to go ahead and actually, you know what? I wired that up wrong. I want this to not only be a tap transition. Yep, got it. It's because right here on this artboard, we're listening here. I was listening to the wrong artboard the entire time. So with that said, I can go ahead and select my artboard. I can go ahead and click that plus wire right there, add my voice. So once we land on that, I can go ahead and now switch this to that transition. And I'm going to choose that artboard. And in this case, I think I might have already drawn it right there, but I would just drag and drop it right over to that artboard with that voice set up. And it looks like I'm going to go ahead and undo that since I had previously done it. But with that transition, you can see here that I have that voice trigger as surfing and all of my easing properties. So if I come back into this, click play, grab that microphone, and I'll turn up my volume so you guys can hopefully hear it. It's going through, doing the listening. You press your space bar to use your microphone, surfing.
Okay, here is surfing and a couple of other suggestions for you.
So one of the other things that XD has is you heard that voice playback. Well, within XD, I drew this little wire off right here on that artboard, did a time trigger, and then we have speech and audio playback as well. So you can choose, if you have audio files or sounds for interactions, you can include those as well. But in this case, I wanted speech playback, and I can choose from a variety of voices and write that exact message in right there. So some really kind of cool things that you can do with that voice. Now,
can you have multiple actions, like for example, have that say that and also print it at the same time?
You can. XD supports multiple actions. So you can have hover, tap, voice, keyboard. You can have them all layered on top of each other if you'd like. It's up to you. It's your own experience that you're creating. We definitely allow you to create multiple actions per interaction, or multiple interactions within a single element.
Great. We're just approaching the top of the hour, so
yeah,
we got some great questions coming in, and wanted to make sure you got that speech one in here because I thought that was so awesome. But would love to just bring up the unanswered questions. And so one of the ones was, so someone is using Figma and they say that it has the ability to have multiple pages within a project. They're saying that XD with its major sprawling window can get a little bit messy. Is there a feature or ability to coming that will allow for multiple pages?
Yes. Yeah. So what I can say on that is, we're well aware that we don't have pages, especially myself coming from Sketch. So that was kind of, if there was one thing that I was like, but I will tell you, be on the lookout, and I'll just leave it there. We are working on a lot of stuff right now, having the ability to better organize more space so we can collaborate and design more. I will say that we have some really big things coming to XD. And that may be one of them. Not saying it is, not saying it's not, but maybe.
And that kind of leads into another question was, if other team members, like the managers in other departments, do not have XD, is there a way to export so that they can view it without using XD, or like a web view or something like that?
Yeah, this is a perfect setup for the kind of one of the last areas that I wanted to show. So there are a couple of areas what you can do within XD. So as you saw, I had this like wonderful prototype directly here. One feature that XD has is I can fully interact with the prototype, but we also have this little record button right here that I can also capture my voice. So I can record a video of myself interacting with the prototype with a voiceover to really kind of iterate my intention and share that directly out. But beyond that, if I wanted to, I would just toggle directly over to the Share tab. Since I created this flow already, I can click over to the Share tab, and then I have a bunch of different view settings that I can choose from. Design reviews, typically for stakeholders. We have an amazing development handoff to get all those assets, specs. XD redlines everything for you. You don't have to redline anything anymore. Presentations, user testing options, as well as custom. But in this case, I will just share this design review. Link access, we can do anyone with a link. It can be password protected or invited people. Now, to best answer your question, I'll go back over into my browser and I'll pull down this window. You can share this link out so somebody could fully interact with your prototype, and they do not need an XD license. They do not need a Creative Cloud license. They purely just need an internet connection and a browser window. You can see here that they can interact with the prototype just as like I did. All the voice controls work. If I tap there, the keyboard will come up like so, but they also can participate in the feedback process. So I can say something along the lines of like, update icon. If I wanted to give that feedback, and then pin that specific feedback to that area directly there. Now, anybody that has access to this prototype, they'll be able to kind of see all of those comments directly there. But the cool thing is as a designer, I can come in here and I can mark things as resolved. And then anybody that wants to come in, like project management or people wanting to review what's been done so far, they can always filter down and see what's been resolved. But the great thing is you don't even need a license to access this stuff. It's purely shareable. And even if it's shared directly with an email address from XD, still you don't need it. But even like I showed you in XD, if you were to share this with development like so, I'll jump over to another view. In this case, I'm just showing that desktop preview that I had worked on. Development view, same thing, no license required. So if you're handing these assets off to a developer, they don't need access to XD. You can share a single URL. By default, you'll see the full color palette that's being used, all of the character styles, any interactions on the home page. But what I can do is I can begin to select elements, and you can see that XD highlights it, redlines it all out. I get the specs. One of the things that I didn't note, but I will share now, is we have full design token support in XD as well. So you can see here with this button selected, I have that XD pink design token defined right there. But with that button, I also see my component states. So the developer can get specs and see all of the component states as well, and as well as interact with them. We do have CSS snippets, and we also provide all of the interaction properties so it can be properly implemented. Any raster image that has been marked for download, they'll be able to get access to that by selecting on it or going out into the home area like so. If I navigate back here, you can see all of those assets that have been marked for export. The great thing is XD, if you've built this for web, it'll automatically export out 1x and 2x assets. iOS goes up to 3x. I think that's where they're at. Android is up to 5 or 6x these days. So XD will automatically export all those assets directly out for you. And if you're utilizing design tokens, guess what? Your developer can download all those CSS variables directly here as well. Again, no license is required. So some really great things that you can do there.
That's really amazing. Well, I hate to say, but we're out of time. So we have a choice to make, everyone here. We can stay or we can leave. But we definitely want to give you all here the option to head on over to some of these great remaining sessions that we have coming up. But if you feel like sticking around, we definitely have some more questions here in the chat. And if you do have some more questions, feel free to add them. And Zach has been gracious around to stick around for a little bit longer to answer those. But yeah, I just want to give the opportunity to say, first of all, thank you so much to Zachary. If everyone can send their applause and their love for this, that would be great. And we definitely thank Adobe, who is one of our sponsors, for sending him out to give us this great overview of Adobe XD. Definitely something that I've been sort of holding off trying, even though I have my own license. But yeah, definitely this gives me that sort of extra nudge to say, hey, let's use it. So with that, we definitely would like, as Zach mentioned, he's going to be making these file available for us, and maybe if you have a slide or something that has that, he is also very gracious to say, reach out to him directly. And but yeah, so thank you so much for those that are deciding to leave. We've had a great session here, but if you want to have some more, please stick around. And I think we have some raised hands who actually want to ask some questions. So I'm not sure if we are wanting to, but
yeah. And I was going to say, as I put my email address up here because I'm a creative just like you all. My job is not to sell XD by all means. So feel free to reach out to me, whether it's email or a social channel. If you have questions about XD, want to know if XD can do certain things or support certain workflows, I'm going to tell you how it is kind of a person. So I would love to have those types of conversations. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And
that's
wonderful. All those resources that I shared today are directly on adobe.com/learnxd. We've got some great stuff. If you come down into Learn and Support, you can go through each one of the sections directly right here, or directly in Features. You can see that we've got all the UI kits directly here as well. So we've got all the Apple, Google Material, Carbon, Alexa, Bootstrap, but here's where all the fun stuff happens. So there's that component states UI kit that I had mentioned earlier. Here's a presentations template, but here's all the auto animate stuff that I was demoing today as well. So it's all free, downloadable right there. It's all XD source files. So
great. Well, we still have some questions that are streaming in. One of the ones that has been holding on for a while here is, can you please quickly mention some of your favorite plugins?
Yes, I can definitely mention some of my favorite plugins. So I have a slide built up for them. So, Whiteboard, I love to collaborate with other individuals, regardless of role. It's part of the process, and I love it. So Whiteboard is a huge one. I love Docs to Design. So I work with a ton of content folks. And with Docs to Design, it's a free plugin that will allow you to select all of your artboards within XD. It exports them out to an Excel spreadsheet and takes snapshots of them. But what it does is it extracts all of your text labels or text elements out of XD and puts them in the spreadsheet. And you can actually sync the spreadsheet between Excel or Numbers and XD. So it's great. I'm all about building inclusive experiences. So Stark is one that I'm utilizing all the time for colorblind simulation as well as contrast checking. Believe it or not, I actually came from a development background and became I was an aspiring graphic designer back in 1996. And so I do a lot of development still. So VS Code, we built a free XD extension for Visual Studio Code, where you can actually, if you deploy design systems through Creative Cloud and XD, you can actually utilize that extension to sync with that library file, pull down all of your design token data, component metadata, and things of that sort, and then compile for whatever platform you're designing for. Workfront is another one if you have project management software, or I'll just say even just management software in general. Jira, Slack, Workfront, all of those, they have direct integrations with XD. I'll tell you how it is, because that's all I know how to do. I hate going into Jira. I hate it. and because it's just so complicated. But there is a Jira integration with XD. So anytime something gets assigned to me, I just open up the Jira panel in XD. I can see everything that's assigned to me. If it requires action, whether it's an updated asset, updated prototype link, or whatever, I can just take care of it directly in XD. I don't ever have to go into Jira again. So there's great integrations like that. If you use Trello, you can write stuff directly to cards within their Kanban board. So some cool interactions. And then I'm a huge fan of testing. So there's some, if whatever your favorite usability and research tool is for user testing, UserZoom just happens to be one that I use from time to time. They have a direct integration and allow you to build out that whole user flow through your prototype that you already wired out for users to interact with. So those are a few of my favorite plugins. But I will say that if you are curious about plugins as well, if you click that little plus icon directly within your plugins area, we surface and highlight a bunch of different plugins. So you can come down here and design through or browse through categories to kind of get you into those grouped areas. If you're coming from, say, like the sketch world, that was one of my biggest questions. It's like, hey, but I got all these plugins. Well, XD has a specific area for all of popular sketch plugins, and guess what? They all were available for XD too. So it was great. So we have a huge extensibility platform. We actually have a team dedicated to it. So we are constantly evaluating plugins and uploading them. But those are just a few of my favorites.
Speaking of sketchy, can you do a sketchy look hand-drawn, like a plugin or in the main interface for early iteration to not look so finished?
Yeah, there is a bunch of plugins. I think I might have a wireframe. I might have removed it, but there is definitely lots of wireframe plugins available. So if I just type in wireframe, so yeah, wireframer, quick mockup. We actually have some wireframing templates there, but those are all that super rough kind of look and feel and
lo-fi kind of thing.
Yeah,
great. Yeah, that's my forte.
Yeah, but really, like the whole idea of plugins is to kind of simplify your experience and allow you to kind of stay in your creative tools. So you can see here that like a lot of my stuff is like Airtable because I sync with that stuff. Arranger, Autoflow, different icons because I'm trying to pull icons from different libraries. There's that Docs to Design, FlowKit. I'm trying to think. Icons for Design is another favorite one that I have right now. So there's Stark. Visi Charts is a super fun one. If you do anything with charts, you can actually create charts and sync that with a CSV file, and XD will draw them through the plugin. So some really cool stuff there. And then you can animate them with Auto Animate. So
of course. So someone was saying they kind of overheard you but wasn't quite sure. But Katie was asking, did you say that the playground file will be accessible?
Yeah. So all the stuff that I had right here in the playgrounds. So all of this stuff right here, if you go to adobe.com/learnxd, it will be right here. So if I start from the top, you come into features, go down to UI kits, and right when it loads, you'll pass all of our UI kits that we highlight right now, and then jump into community file, that component states UI kit.
Okay, so that's
everything. That has basically all of these artboards right here.
The auto animate ones as well.
And then the auto animate ones, plus probably about 200% more in examples, is going to be the one right below it. Auto animate.
Auto animate. Okay, great.
And then here's a wireframe kit. You were talking about that, but we have a bunch of UI kits for that as well, for low fidelity options.
Great. And I think we're just coming out to the end here. I think we've got a couple more questions here.
Perfect.
So Dorothy was saying, I assume mobile web browser is also able to use without those right navigation bar sample usability testing on the phone device.
Let me see. You were kind of breaking up towards the end of that.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. Do you see the question? It's in the Q&A. So I assume mobile web browser is also available to use right without those right navigation.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different options. So if you access one of the prototype links that you have previously shared, and you access it on your mobile device, XD does two things, or one of two things. First, what it does is we have companion apps, so for iOS and Android. So we'll see if we can access if you have that app installed. If not, it'll display it in a mobile view. If you're viewing it on a desktop web, or if you're viewing a desktop web experience on your mobile device, you'll have some additional controls where you can kind of zoom around and actually get the full landscape of that. But if you're viewing a mobile prototype link on a mobile device, you'll be able to interact with it just as you would on your mobile phone or how you prototype it.
Wonderful. And I think we got one last question here. Along with this sketching question, can you use a sidebar on macOS with XD on iPad to sketch out wireframes roughly? So basically, do you know this? I think, yeah, I think they're talking about the where you can connect your iPad to Mac and then drag over and use the sidecar. I think sidecar is what.
Sidecar, yeah, I believe it does work. I have not utilized it myself. Since COVID, my iPad has disappeared. My kids have it somewhere in the house, so I have no idea where it is. I have heard people utilizing it, and in fact, I'm fairly certain it does work because one of my colleagues utilizes it for situations like this, so they can have their dedicated XD screen, but have all their XD assets out off the primary screen. It does.
Yeah. And if you saw the latest WDC, there's a really cool new feature with macOS where you're just able to put your Mac and your iPad side by side each other and just drag your mouse off to the next device. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's, the stuff is, some of the smart technology these days is getting pretty awesome, but it's also getting pretty scary.
Yeah. Well, listen, Zach, it's been a pleasure. It really has. And I must say that most of the people who have been watching this have stuck around.
Thank you all so much. Yeah, this was awesome. I mean, if I could do these sessions all day, every day, I definitely would. I love talking about this.
We'll definitely arrange for that. I mean,
perfect. Yeah, I have a blast. I love connecting with the community. So I truly mean it. Please reach out. I may be a little slow to respond. I'm a little old school when it comes to a lot of this social media stuff. So, if I haven't had a couple of cups of coffee in my system, I'm a little bit slower than normal. So please be patient. I do respond. I really do. I'm kind of like operating on island time in my own time as much as I possibly can.
Right. Well, take care, stay safe, everyone, and head on over to the next sessions because you're almost there. Just a few more hours, and this is all done for another year. And again, we thank you, Adobe, for sending Zach, one of our wonderful sponsors. And with that ado, I will close this session, unless final call for any last-minute pressing questions. But I'm going to say going once, going twice. We're sold. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. I truly appreciate your time. Have a great rest of the day.
Yes.